slavery. Reparations for slavery is an idea that some form of compensatory payment should be made to the descendants of Africans who were enslaved by the transatlantic slave trade. Do you understand what's wrong with all that? First off, you're Africans. Reparations for slavery is for people being enslaved who had been enslaved by the transatlantic slave trade. There's no such thing as the Atlantic slave trade. You have Christian slavery. You have Christians that benefited from your slavery. The Atlantic didn't benefit from your slavery. This is worded wrong on purpose, because we're supposed to be too ignorant to understand what's really being said here. Now, it says it's an idea, right? Now, when the fake Jews got your land on the other side of the world, your apartment, your condo, when they got that shit in the Levant, or in what they call the Levant over there in the Mediterranean Sea, they sued for reparations. That wasn't an idea. See, the problem is people keep suing the government as United States of America. They're not suing the government as the corporation that benefited from it. See, we're the #1 country because of what? Because we had trillions of dollars in stock when everybody else only had gold and silver. Gold does not go to another piece of gold and start fucking and reproduce more gold. See, there's only so much gold on the earth, right? But people, they mate and they reproduce, and if people are considered, well, let's stay with the basic word, stock. The economic stock, there's a value in one person, and then you have value in many people, right? So we're talking about a corporate. Don't even pay attention. The United States is a country. The United States is a motherfucking corporation. You sue DC for everything that's in DC, and it's a whole different story. Now, individual states can be sued on fraud because you're not a fucking African, and individual states have that proof. The more proof that's there, the harder the lawsuit. Michigan, you just take Michigan. It's just ours. Ohio, you know how much stuff's been found here in Ohio that has my motherfucking face on it? One man can't go to court for every black person in the country, you stupid asses. I need volunteers to say I'll participate and then show the fuck up. See, your ass thinks that Malcolm X just dropped out of the fucking sky, because you're not going to sit there and read that he had a mom and a dad and he came out of a vagina. Your ass thinks that Martin Luther King Jr. dropped out of the fucking sky, because you're not going to read and learn that he had a mom and a dad and he came out of a vagina, and then he was educated, and then other men helped him get where he was going. See, the problem is you live in fantasy fucking land. It's called FX, and that's a TV station, and you have to turn that goddamn TV off sometime and realize without your participation, nothing gets done. So instead of going in there with my wife, I'm sitting here late at night. Oh, it's 12:30 with you. Did you watch FX first? Did you watch the news? How long have you been watching TV tonight? Are you tired of the same old shit? Do you say because my ass is fat I can't do anything? Well, I'll tell you what, because you have a heartbeat, there's a lot you can do. So, it says demand for reparations. In 1999, African World Reparations and Reparation Truth Commission called for the West to pay $777 trillion to Africa within 5 years. Okay, so African World Reparations and Reparation Truth Commission, they called for the West. That means, the 10 kings that rule colonized countries to pay $777 trillion to Africa within 5 years. So that was a demand, right? In 2004, Lord Lloyd's of London was sued by the descendants of African slaves. The case was not successful. In Jamaica, 2004, a coalition of Rastafari movement groups argued that European countries formerly involved with slave trade, especially Britain, should pay £72.5 billion sterling to resettle 500,000 Jamaican Rastafarians in Africa. The claim was rejected by the British government, which said it could not be held accountable for the wrongs in past centuries. November of 2006, British Prime Minister Tony Blair made a partial apology for Britain's role in the African slavery trade. However, African right activists denounced the empty rhetoric that failed to address the issue properly. They feel his apology stopped shy to prevent any legal retort. Blair again apologized on March 14th of 2007. Here in August of 2007, Ken Livingstone, then Mayor of London, apologized publicly for London's role in the slave trade. You can look across to see the institutions that have the benefit of the wealth that they created from slavery, he said, pointing towards the financial district, before breaking down in tears. He claimed that London was still tainted by the horrors of slavery. Jesse Jackson praised Mayor Livingstone and added that reparations should be made. That dude just pops up everywhere. He's just you should always just comically imagine his head popping up right here with a finger. Reparations will be made. Jesse fucking. Yeah. In 2007 in Guyana, they called for European nations to pay reparations for slave trade. And these are all demands that have been not met. 2001, Antigua and Barbuda called for reparations at the United Nations, saying that segregation and violence against people of African descent had impaired their capacity for advancement as nations, communities, and individuals. That's a good point. In 2012, Jamaica received its Reparations Commission to consider the question whether the country should seek an apology or excuse me, this is not a laughing matter, but I'm sorry, that hit me in the wrong way. An apology or reparations. Wait, I want you to apologize, or I want the money. Let's see. I want you to apologize for enslaving me, or I want financial freedom from you in the future. Okay, so they said they were wondering whether they should seek an apology or reparations from Britain in its role for slavery. The opposition cited that Britain's role in the end of the slave trade as a reason that Britain should issue no reparation. Whoa. The opposition cited Britain's role in the end of the slave trade as a reason that Britain should issue no reparations. Okay, so the end of reparations, Britain issued a law that if anybody else starts slave trading, they'll arrest them and shit, right? So what they're saying is because that law was issued, Britain ended slavery because of blah, 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 right? There's still slavery going on over here. That just had to do with commercial seas. You can't grab somebody from one land and just, take them to another. Shit is so full of holes. It says here, in 2012, Barbados government established a 12-member reparation task force to be responsible for sustaining the local, regional, and international momentum for reparations. I don't understand that. There was 12 members that's in a task force to sustain momentum for reparations, whether it be local, regional, or international. Barbados is reportedly currently leading the way in calling for reparations from former colonial powers for the injustices suffered by slaves and their families. It says, in 2013, in the first of a series of lectures in Georgetown, Guyana, to commemorate the 250th anniversary of 1763 barbarized slave revolt, principal of the Cave Hill campus of the University of West Indies, Sir Hilary Beckles, urged the Caribbean countries to emulate the position adopted by the Jews who were persecuted during the First and Second World War and have since organized Jewish Reparation Fund. Alright, so basically an Englishman said to these cats, what you need to do is follow what the Jews did. You need to sue the companies that benefited individually. Well, see, I don't think these people are wrong. These governments put themselves as companies. See, and when they sue these governments as the government being a company, they're being told, no, you took the people to court. United States versus, that means you're taking the people to court, not the business. See, so it deals with some sort of trickery that it seems like a lawyer should be able to understand, but on a multi-trillion-dollar case like that, how could a lawyer not be clear about something like that? See, the law is very clear about what a government is. But obviously when you're arguing with the government, it obviously takes itself out of that position. Now, I've told you, I feel reparations is a fucking joke. We've all watched Bugs Bunny, and we've all seen that to lure the rabbit out into the open, he takes Elmer Fudd, right? Elmer Fudd and the rabbit, right? He takes a fishing rod and ties a carrot to it, and and that's what I feel reparations is. It's a fucking carrot dangling on the string that's just out of your reach. Always. Well, we admit what we did to you. Okay, well, reimburse me for it. Well, the time for that is already passed. What the fuck do you mean? You've built all these laws against a people group all along the way so you can have your fucking caste system. And see, that's why I feel like people just don't understand how to argue this. I mean, you'll sit there and you got lectures on Jim Crow laws showing all the effects of it, but you can't just take that fucking lecture to court and win on that alone? You got all these lectures on how the housing market was curbed against black people and how they were this and that based on fucking zip codes, but you just can't take that lecture to court and win with that? Somebody's bullshitting me. Come on. So there's something called restitution. I go and I break your window, I have to pay for that window if I'm caught, right? These people admit in their own books what they've done. There's plenty of pictures online which show the hangings, the burnings. There's plenty of families that have stories. I'm sure they have some kind of evidence, like that their land and property were just snatched from them by whites. The law of restitution is the law of gains-based recovery. It is to be contrasted with laws of compensation, which is the law of loss-based recovery. Obligations to make restitution and obligations to pay compensation are each a type of legal response to events in the real world. Now, restitution opens completely different than reparations, doesn't it? Reparations is an idea. Restitution is a legal response to events in the real world. Now, one sounds like a cartoon. It's an idea. And one sounds like an actual legal action. A legal response to events in the real world. My ancestors were murdered, raped, and butchered. That's a real event in the real world. So, are you understanding the difference between reparations and restitution just alone? Please tell me that you've taken the time to type in reparations or even restitution and you're reading right along with me. And I print this shit out. I don't even have a printer. I mean, you people will sit there and watch people mock me, but you won't get up off your fucking ass and even fucking go preach to your goddamn family members. It disgusts me what actually takes place here. You sit and watch this like it's some fucking TV show. I got Gentile galore trying to help me help you, and you won't even fucking help yourselves. You know, I think half of you got the fucking mentality, I'm just supposed to go out in Utah, sit in the fucking desert, isolate myself with no food and water, and whenever the fuck you show up, you're just gonna show up. I think that's what half of you fantasize about. Well, goddamn, let's just do cocaine together, because that's just dumb. Why would I get out to the desert unprepared? I've been giving you non-stop heads up on this. You know about this before anybody else does. You're ahead of the curve. Everything else you've learned fucking months after, fucking years after it's happened. Right now, you're ahead of the curve. The whole rest of the world's learning at the same rate you are. And there's a few of you that say thanks. I appreciate that. I really do. But it's not about the things. It's about the action. It's about the action. What do you want me to do? Fucking pray for brains for once. If I've got to tell you what to do, I can't fucking sue and be out in the middle of the desert. You can't be out in the middle of the desert and fucking sue. And if they can't kill me and they decide to incarcerate me, I can't be incarcerated and in the fucking desert and in the court of law at the same time. That means you have to rise, Israel. This is what we've all been waiting for. You rising. See, anytime you guys ever wanted to, you guys could have made any protest anywhere. They'd call you Africans on TV, on Fox News. You could have went, You could have said, hey, we protest in New York on this day. You could have protested Fox News. Everybody wants to go to New York. Everybody wants an excuse. You guys could have made it happen. You guys wanted to protest the UN. You guys could have made it happen. I don't have a team. I have viewers. If I have viewers that think they're fucking followers, I'm gonna turn around and look over my shoulder. And if you're not there behind me, you ain't fucking following me. So I got viewers, right? So, listen, if I got 6,000 viewers, 2,000 can be in the desert. 2,000 can be in Washington or New York, whichever court you choose. And if I'm incarcerated, 2,000 of you could be sitting there protesting to get me out. You're letting them control everything. We have all kinds of power. You guys aren't willing to utilize it. You got Farrakhan will get you together to have hot dogs on Lincoln's fucking lap. That's the best you guys can do. I'll get you all together and I'll make you pray to your creator. I'll make you cut down goats. I'll make you build a pristine altar with unhewn stone. I'll force you to see your God just by using the Bible as a playbook. And when we get our chance, we're gonna kick everybody's ass just like he tells us to. But other than that, a legal response. Restitution is a legal response to events in the real world. When a court orders restitution, it orders the defendant to give up his or her gains to the claimant. When a court orders compensation, it orders the defendant to pay the claimant for his or her loss. They want the fucking land? Pay us for it. We'll leave. This type of damages restores the benefit conferred to the non-breaching party. Simply, the plaintiff will get the value of whatever was conferred to the defendant when there was a contract. This is a situation where we do have a contractual obligation. It's called a treaty. I'm not even going to tell you the name of the treaty yet. I'm going to keep myself valuable. There are two There are two general limits to recovery. Which is that a complete breach of contract is needed and damages will be capped at the contract price if the restitution damages is exceeded. Now, this is where it gets awesome. The orthodox view suggests that there is only one principle on which the law of restitution is dependent, namely the principle of unjust enrichment. However, so at that point, like a wise man would be like, well, what's unjust enrichment? So here's unjust enrichment, and that's another thing to sue for. Now hold on. So they did make themselves rich off stealing. We have their pay. We could sue the Pope. We could sue the papacy. Listen, for them to sit there and say, "Oh, well, we have no control over what happened in the past." How did he say it? Thomas. It says something like, "We're not gonna pay for the things that happened in the past," or something like that. These are, like they say, these places have grown because of the money gained from our enslavement. Damn, I lost it. That was on. No, that was on this one. That's why I lost it. This is the part where Jesse Jackson pops in, right? Right. Ken Livingstone, mayor of London, apologized publicly for London's role in the slave trade. We look across and see the institutions that still have benefit of the wealth that was created from slavery. See, these institutions have wealth based off of slavery, and that's very different. So it says, principle of unjust enrichment. However, the view that restitution, like other legal responses, can be triggered by any one of a variety of causative events is increasingly prevalent. These are events in the real world which can trigger a legal response. It is beyond doubt that unjust enrichment and wrongs can trigger an obligation to make restitution. Now, under restitution for wrongs, there's five big ones. A statutory tort, a common law tort. Now, if you look up tort, I believe tort is an act against someone, like a physical act. So like murder is tort, I believe, don't quote me. It's simpler if you look up the word tort and put it up. Why don't I just take my own advice? It's simpler if I just look up the word tort. This is where we get the word torture from. This is the root word of torture. Tort, a common law jurisdiction, is a civil wrong that unfairly caused someone else to suffer loss or harm resulting in legal liability for the person who is hurt. Okay, that is what a legal tort is. So I was kind of way off, but kind of in the ballpark. It was like a bunt that went foul. Yeah, okay, whatever. Okay, so common law, statutory tort, common law tort, and equitable wrong, a breach of contract. I've already explained there. We do have treaties with these people. And 5 is criminal offenses. Let's see if there's any more listed. Nope, 5 is the last one. So there's other things to read under restitution. It's just that it's unnecessary. This is to spark your mind to see that there can be law cases brought against the U.S. government and other institutions, namely, the sports teams. They've all taken their names from our heritage as if, they're supposed to be about these other types of Indians, and they're not. The biggest institution that we can form a lawsuit against is the Smithsonian. Oh dear God, the Smithsonian. And that branches off because it goes into government, and then once it goes into government, it goes into the military experiments, especially things like the Tuskegee. And this is how people don't understand the collateral effect that this starts growing in. They just showed evidence these chemtrails are purposely pointed towards you. We need to get the fuck out of here. We can fight this case in world court. Okay. So we just heard about unjust enrichment. Unjust enrichment. Alright, so you just type it in your search engine, bring it up on Wikipedia. In law, unjust enrichment is where one person is unjustly or by chance enriched at the expense of another. Now, through colonization, they are enriched by you. Now this is so self-explanatory. It seems petty. It seems silly to keep reading, but I'm gonna. In fact, I'm gonna start over. You know how I use those videos and I click backwards too many times? In law, unjust enrichment is where one person is unjust enrichment is where one person is unjustly or by chance enriched at the expense of another. So let's leave the by chance out. In law, unjust enrichment is where one person is unjustly enriched at the expense of another, and an obligation to make restitution. See, it goes right back to restitution. Do you see why all these topics have to be filed against? One leads to the other. They say, oh no, you can't get reparations. Well, good, because I want restitution. I want restitution based on unjust enrichment, and wait till I get to what's called blood money. In law, unjust enrichment is where one person is unjustly enriched at the expense of another, and an obligation to make restitution arises, regardless of liability for wrongdoing. A common example is when one party contracts to provide a service, but the contract is terminated prematurely due to a breach. The contractor unjustly receives no compensation for partial services rendered. Now, this is just a common example. This is not the root of what a lawsuit based on unjust enrichment is. They came over and plundered us. That's stealing. Once they were here and we were successful amongst them, they plundered us again. That's still stealing. They used planes to drop bombs on people while they were doing business. The concept of unjust enrichment is based on Roman legal maxim. No one should be benefited at others' expense. That is the premise of our lawsuit. We live in a country that has taken Rome law and ran with it. This is what Rome's law says. No one should benefit at another's expense. What is Christian slavery? See, when we left Rome, the records are hidden. Want to know why they're hidden? Something had to happen for us to be able to leave. It had to revolve around law. For us to leave there and survive journeys through all these countries, We had to have some kind of financing and weaponry. And if we left Rome with it, that makes a lot of sense. And if we didn't write about it, that doesn't make sense, because we wrote about everything. Now, if they found those writings and hid them from us, then that makes sense. So there's a huge gap in history missing. And most people just don't see it, because they're on the side of white supremacy. And it's covering up something big. The downfall of Rome, it don't have nothing to do with the Germans. Germany was there to just gobble up little shitlings that was left, man. Each time an empire based itself on our slavery, it fell from the slaves overthrowing them. This time, it ain't gonna be different, but this time leads to the final days. So that's why the word remnant is used so much. So we learned about unjust enrichment.